This episode is specially brought to you by the Elevated Collective in downtown Huntington, Indiana. I had the opportunity to speak with Ashley Miller, the business owner, last season on the last episode, and let me tell you, what a way to end the season. She has a heart for the community and the people within it, and I could not be more grateful that she reached out to specially sponsor this episode with Sharon Metzger. If you've never been to the Elevated Collective, let me give you a little bit of a synopsis about this amazing store. When you walk in, your jaw is just automatically dropped to the floor. It is so beautiful inside, and it doesn't help when the owner is just an absolute delight. It is jam-packed full of locally handmade products, from small businesses to just people who love to create and want to sell some of their products. And I think it just goes to show the heart behind what Ashley wants to do with her store. Everything from teas to plants, you're going to find a little bit of everything. If you're looking for a unique gift, that is the place to go. Make sure you go visit the Elevated Collective in downtown Huntington and go over to her social medias, the Elevated Collective on Facebook and Instagram, so you can just kind of see more about her store. Show her your support, and thank you so much again to Ashley Miller with an Elevated Collective. I have to take a second and say a huge thank you to my first half of the season sponsor, which is a Simple Farm. I am honored to work alongside a business who I truly believe in their passion, their purpose, and their product. And a Simple Farm is just that. There is nothing better than working with a family-owned and operated business. They're nestled in the heart of rural Wabash County and is inspired by country living, handmade traditions, and a deep love for herbal and medicinal plants. From handcrafted soaps and herbal salves to cozy home goods and repurposed creations, each product is thoughtfully made using nature-inspired ingredients and a passion for simple, natural living. Rooted in creativity, heritage, and old-fashioned farmhouse values, A Simple Farm celebrates the healing beauty of herbs, the comfort of handmade goods, and the charm of a slower way of life in rural Indiana. Folks, you're going to want to pick up some of their products, so make sure you head over to A Simple Farm on Facebook and Instagram, and I'll have their website linked below so you can just easily click on any of their platforms and you can find them automatically. Like I said, I truly believe in them, and Kristen Reynolds, if you want to learn more about her, there's 2 articles on my website, and there's a podcast with Kristen Reynolds and her son Vincent, so make sure you head over to season 1 of Here in My Time and you can hear their interview. I have exciting news with A Simple Farm. She has been so gracious of not only sponsoring this first half of the season, but wanting to give even more to my listeners. She believes in our message as well, and I'm so thankful to have her just be a part of it. But she's got 2 gifts that are going to be giveaways, and they will be dropping in the next couple weeks. So make sure that you go over to both of our social medias so you can stay tuned for that. You're going to want some of these products, and what better way than to get them in a giveaway through Here in My Time and a Simple Farm partnership. So head over, give us a follow so you can be updated, and I'll give you a little hint. One of them will be dropping this week, so make sure you are a part of all of our platforms. My returning sponsor of Turn the Page Books and Music Store is the place to go to find your next read or your next record to add to your collection. It is all about the atmosphere of this place. As soon as you walk through the door, you are hit with the most magnificent lighting, the wooden floors, the smell of old books, and of course, the sound of flipping through LPs. What could be any better than that? Well, Rex. Rex is the owner of Turn the Page Books and Music Store. He is just the man to see about anything to do with music. So make sure you head over there and support him on Facebook, on Instagram, and of course, just stop by at the store. You will not want to leave. Thank you, Rex, for supporting this season. It's such an honor. Now, on to the episode. This is Here in My Time, the podcast dedicated to bridging the gap between generations. I'm your host, Lauren Hunt, a local personal journalist, photographer, documentarian, and a lover of people and their stories, located right here in Wabash, Indiana. Now, today, I'm so excited. I have Sharon Metzger, and she's from downtown Huntington, and I am really excited because I met you through Ashley Miller from the Elevated Collective
Yes.
in downtown. And so this is the first time we're sitting together, and it's a true interview because I know nothing.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm a mystery at this point.
I love it. I love it. So tell me a little bit about yourself. Like, let's introduce you to the audience just so they kind of get a handle of who you are, and then we'll get into your background. Who are you?
Well, thank you for that lovely introduction so far. I am, in terms of job, I am the director of Huntington Main Street, which is kind of the original connection between you and I. My background is that I have worked in nonprofit administration since I graduated from college. And currently, in my role, I am helping to develop our downtown space in Huntington, which is great. Other than professionally, I'm also a mom. I have 2 kiddos, a 12-year-old and a 6-year-old. And I'm also married. My husband, Kyle, he also works in nonprofit circles as well. So, yeah, we've lived in Huntington for 20 years this year, which is crazy. I grew up in Northwest Ohio and came for college, came to Huntington University in 2006, expected to move back to Ohio, and instead found a community that I just loved. And my husband and I fell in love with the community, and we just kept finding reasons to stay. It was either church or job or friends. That reason would kind of change over time, but there was always something that kept us there. Um, and so to raise a family and to have a job that is built on placemaking and helping people fall in love with the space really makes a lot of sense for me. So, yeah, that's a quick synopsis of kind of who I am as a person. And yeah, those are the most important things. Obviously, there's other things I could get into, but yeah.
No, I love that. So tell me a little bit about what did you say, northeast?
Northwest Ohio.
Northwest Ohio. Tell me about what kind of town was that? What do you?
So I grew up in a very small town, actually out in the country,
Okay.
outside of a small town called Macomb, Ohio, and it's near Findlay, Ohio, if anybody is familiar. And I was one of 4 siblings. Grew up with my parents. Grew up the town I grew up near and went to school in had 1,700 people. So moving to Huntington, which is a city of 17,000, feels large to me.
Really?
But I also love I love exploring cities. And so, even big cities, but kind of found like this ideal living out in the country. I'm an extrovert. And so that wasn't my ideal, like that
Oh, yeah.
disconnection. Until I could drive, it was like my siblings were who I had to play with, or I just played solo by myself out in the woods. And so, yeah, as an extrovert, that was not ideal. And Huntington, I think, is that like perfect size community because it allows for to be known and to be connected, but not so big that you kind of feel like you're
Oh, yeah.
in a sea. So yeah, grew up in the same place, the same house my entire life. Went to the same school, K through 12. A lot of my classmates also went to school K through 12, which is kind of funny. Graduated a class of 72, so pretty small. And yeah, I was very involved in my church, had friends, was in band. Pretty good childhood. Yeah.
That sounds
Yeah.
like fun. So being an extrovert, okay, what did you do to kind of get your fix on that kind of feel? I mean, you're involved in a lot of things, but
That's a good
surely there was
question.
like what was something that you did to find that connection?
Yeah. That's a great question. Well, definitely when I could drive, I was like, you cannot pin me down. I was going to be with the people. I was going to
Yeah.
be with my friends. And I was going to, be out and about. And also just being connected and like being in band, being in
Yeah.
choir, doing things in school. But I think friends have always been an important part of my life because of that. So, yeah.
Do you think your love for, nonprofit
Mhm.
and being connected kind of stemmed from your childhood?
Yeah, I think so. I think that growing up in the church, and not just growing up in church, but growing up with my parents,
Mhm.
I think they were very generous people.
Mhm.
And, relationships with parents can be complicated. And some of that has even like fed into the choices I've made career-wise later in life. But one of the things that I definitely attribute to my parents is their generosity, and I think kind of their, for lack of a better term, like servant's heart. Like
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
were always very generous to people. Usually during the holidays, there'd be someone sitting at the table that I barely knew because
Mhm.
they wanted to make sure that people had a place to go for
Mhm.
Christmas or for
Mhm.
Thanksgiving. And so very generous people, both grew up in big families. And yeah,
Mhm.
so I definitely think I think nonprofit work drew me because of their kind of the things that they instilled in me that, you know, money was never like a top priority for me, which I mean, if you're gonna work in nonprofits, you're
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
probably good if you don't have money as a top priority because you're probably not gonna make a whole lot.
Right.
But yeah, I even came to college didn't really know what I wanted to do, but I think anything that really drew me, it was usually because there was some sort of kind of giving back or
Mhm.
wanting to serve others. So,
So, how do you, beyond your work, which we'll get into,
mhm.
but every day you, Sharon, how do you give generously? And
Hmm.
just your day-to-day life. It could be little things, big it doesn't have to be the big whatever, but how do you find a way to give back every day?
That's a really good question. I think that in my personal life, the people that are most important to me, like showing generosity to my children, the most important thing to me is not success for them. It's that they grow up being kind people and that
Mm.
they have empathy towards others, that they're kind towards themselves and others. Um, and not passive, but kind. And so I think I try to be generous in my parenting.
Mhm.
I try to be generous in my marriage and making sure that my children have a home life that they don't feel like they need to escape from, a
Okay.
home life where they feel comfortable and like they belong. I'm also part of a small group, a church small group, but it's with, I'm one of 7 women, and we've been meeting for 10 years now, and it is just
Wow.
one of the most precious things to me in my life. I mean, I think people to think about having like 6 other close people in your life that are in similar circumstances that you're intertwining your life with them. Um, I try to be generous to them, but I would say that in a lot of ways, they're even more generous to me. A lot of us are married and a lot of us have kids.
Mhm.
And so sometimes a lot of us aren't living near our families either. Some are, some aren't.
Mhm.
And so living 2 hours away from my family and from my husband's family, um, it can be tricky to be able to make certain tricky situations work. Like if you need someone to watch your kids or an emergency comes up
Mhm.
or you need a ride to the airport or whatever it is, we're often showing up for each other in our lives.
I
And
love
so
that.
very much like an intertwining of like generosity, but also just, like, kind of being each other's people
Yeah.
when we need each other, which is often.
Mm.
So, I think those are just a couple of ways where I think I try to emulate that part of my parents for sure.
I
So,
love
yeah.
that. I love this idea of community. You're very community based.
Mhm,
That's an obvious thing no
yes.
matter like even in your day-to-day life. And I think we've lost so much community these
Mhm,
days. And I think what nonprofits do and just what people can do in their day to day life can bring people together more and more. Even this idea of gathering in each other's homes
mhm,
and getting together or being there for people beyond a call or a text, but actually being there, having dinner with people,
mhm,
sitting at the table with people. We missed out on a lot of things. And I can remember as a kid, we used to gather a lot, so much people outside of church, outside of, family we would gather a lot. And it seems like even as I've grown up, it's changed. It's been a little bit more, you really have to make an effort
mhm.
to make it happen. What do you think it is? What is that change shift that you've seen, or what is the importance of, shifting back to community?
That's a really good question. I think, so I'm a millennial and I don't know what generation you are, but I'm a millennial. And I think we have an interesting perspective on the world because we grew up with so little technology.
Mm.
And as we were maturing and becoming adults, we were inundated with
Mhm.
technology. And
Mm.
so, when I was very young, like if you wanted to talk to your friends, you had to call them on the phone. And
Mhm.
by the time I was graduating high school, we had instant messenger, we had text messaging, we had cell phones. And so I think we were kind of the last generation to experience kind of a free from technology childhood. And so I think we saw that shift kind of happen in real time for us. And I think every generation, has kind of a gift or a perspective to give the other generations that we can kind of benefit from. And I think for millennials, we're often pegged as nostalgic, and we certainly are, that's for sure. You can tell in our spending habits, you can tell in our music, you can tell in our wardrobes, like we are nostalgic people,
Mhm.
the nostalgic generation. But I think that the gift we can often bring maybe to other generations is kind of that calling back to what we knew as
Mhm.
children through our nostalgia. I think that that makes us good connectors in a lot of ways.
Mhm.
I think we're often good at like kind of creating gathering spaces. I think that's one of the things I bring to my role. I would say I know AI is becoming a thing, technology. It's just like it's changing and evolving. Whenever I use technology, I want it to be because that gives me more time to be in person with
Mhm.
someone. I want
Mhm.
it to be able to help me connect, not disconnect from other
Mhm.
people. So, yeah, a lot of my job is kind of drawing people to downtown, into a space that is really like the heart of our community so that they are seeing people face to face. They are reconnecting. But aside from that, I've just always loved like planning parties, planning
Yeah.
gatherings. When my husband and I were in our early 20s and we were one of the first in our friend group to like buy a house. We just had people over constantly. I mean, just all the time. People sitting on the floors, just trying to find a place because there's just so many people. Because we're both extroverts. We actually
Oh.
joke that we're like super extroverts because we're very extroverted, and that's shifted over time. As we've gotten older and we all have children, things do shift and change. Our gatherings look different because we always want to incorporate our children. We don't like our lives change, but we know we still love to be with people
Mhm.
and connect with people. Our children are also extroverts.
Yes.
So we're just a household of extroverts. And so, yeah, I think that it just plays off of maybe some things that come naturally as a millennial, but also, yeah, just being an extrovert, being a person that likes to connect people.
Right. So maybe somebody's listening here because, a lot of times people have this idea of what gathering should look like. Well,
Hmm.
obviously there's a lot of social media presence of this has to look perfect. The dinner has to be this 5-star meal and the house has to be clean and all
Hmm.
this stuff. What are some practical ways that you have learned as somebody who is very hospitable and bringing people into their home with kids and with a house full of extroverts?
Hmm.
How have you made it simple for you guys to host somebody? Do you worry about certain things or are you just like, "You know what? Come on in and enjoy." Cuz one of the biggest things with this podcast is yes, it's very much on social media. Yes, it's a podcast, but it's meant to slow down and to learn from
Hmm.
and to implement in our lives. And whatever I do here in the tech world of the whole thing of social media,
Hmm.
I want to be able to make a difference in the community and be out in the community. And this is more of a platform than
Hmm.
it is my success.
Yeah.
So or where I want people to spend all their time at
Hmm.
because I want it to implement into their lives. So what have you learned as being very hospitable? How do you be that?
I think we've never really been too hung up on kind of like hosting the perfect party or
Mhm.
like making it like aesthetic,
Mhm.
or I certainly am very rarely doing things like for how it looks on social media. I joke that I'm always the one taking the pictures, but my phone is where pictures go to die because I forget to post them on social media.
Yeah.
I do it for work
Right.
because it's like I'm focused on it for my job, but personally, I don't. I just like forget. So I have to send them to my friends because I know they want to post them. So I'm
Okay.
taking them for all of our sake. And then they post them and that's wonderful. Um, but I think that it's less about how people like view it and more how they feel. So I think one thing that this is both, I would say, personal in terms of like drawing people in or allowing people to kind of feel that connection is allow other people to participate. And so I experience that in my job and the way that I try to welcome like business owners, community members to participate in what we're doing downtown, but also in our personal life. Like, and I think this also just speaks to, where we're all in life, my friends and I, like, none of us are so well off that we're throwing big fancy dinner parties. It's
Mhm.
like, hey, let's get together, everybody bring a side and like
Mhm.
we got the meat.
Mhm.
Or let's get together and order pizza, or let's have a fire and do some wars. Like let's play in the backyard with our
Mhm.
kids. So I think there's something about inviting people in to say like, hey, here's your part and here's my part. Nobody's doing so much that they're not enjoying our time together. Let's just like be real and genuine with each other.
Mhm.
Um, and I think that's one of the kindest compliments that if when people give it to me is like you're just genuine, you're just real, you're
Mhm.
honest, like
Mhm.
that's the nicest compliment because that's what I want to be in life. That's a high value of mine. And so, and I think that the way I like spend time with friends reflects that, where it's like we're all just kind of doing our small part and we're not doing it for how it looks to the outside world. We're doing it for how it makes us feel and how it brings our families together.
Mhm.
So some people have the gift of like throwing a really beautiful dinner party. I'm always amazed at people like that.
Mhm.
I love to attend
Yeah,
things
yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
I like invite me to every fancy dinner party, please. But that's because their skills and abilities kind of allow for that. I think my skills and abilities are just different.
Mhm.
And so just yeah, welcoming people into your home in whatever kind of state it's in and,
Mhm.
in any way that allows you all to just enjoy presence together.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. I'm working on an article that'll be posted when this is out. This is a long time ago, but it will be all about like the biggest gift that you can give somebody is a visit.
Mm,
And I went over to my mammal's house the other day, and I just came over to visit with her for just a couple hours. And even in my mind, I think, well, if I only have time to stop in for an hour, that's not enough time. So I'll do it tomorrow, or I'll do it like I'll put it off because I want to spend a long amount of time. But what made her happy was I just stopped by
hmm
and we had coffee together and we just talked for that hour. And I think I think I said it before, but we miss out so much on those little moments that we have no idea just visiting somebody, what that can do for them and
hmm
how it can light up their day and make them happy.
hmm
And I think we need to implement that a lot more in our life, whether that is a phone call
hmm
and saying, "Hey, how are you?" or it is actually stopping by or allowing that space in our mind to say nothing has to be
hmm
what we think it has to be
Yes.
because people just wanna be with each other.
Yeah.
Why do you think in your job, let's kind of pull it in there. Why do you think community is so important?
I think because it's always been intertwined in my life that I find value in it.
Mhm,
My community, that word has meant different things at different
mhm,
times in my
mhm,
life. And, growing up, my community was my family, my church community. When I went to college, that's like such a unique time where, your community is like all fresh adults, which is
mhm,
its own bit of chaos.
mm,
One of the things that kept me in Huntington was one of my first church communities. It's called the 509 community. It does not exist anymore, which is so sad, but I look back on that time as such a precious time to me. It was a lot of young people just trying to figure out what does church look for us like for us now. And it was messy and chaotic and beautiful
mhm,
and fun and all of those things. And with my small group, with my friends, with my family, my community, it's like ever evolving, ever changing. But I think and now with my job, like thinking of my community even larger as like the community of Huntington, which has always been my community as an adult, but even more so. I think that when we feel like we're a part of something, um, I think that just brings out so many um so many gifts in people, so many things that they kind of see, oh, here's where I connect. I mean, the loneliness epidemic is real. People
Yes.
feel lonelier than ever, and yet we think technology keeps us more connected than ever. But
Mhm.
is it a real connection, or is it
Mhm.
kind of a manufactured, artificial
Mhm.
connection? I always think social media can be so wonderful if it leads to in-person connection,
Yes.
that can't be the only connection. And so, um, and I've just seen when you kind of welcome someone into something where you say, "Hey, I had this idea," or "Hey, what do you think about this? And I see in you how you could do this. Like, what do you think? Or what's your opinion? You know more about this than I do." Um, I think my faith journey has been interesting and tricky, and it's kind of besides the point, but one of the things that I like really love about or one of the images I love is the idea that we're like all part of the body of Christ, and
Yes.
that
Yeah.
we are all offering different things. And one thing that I still like believe very deeply is that we see a different part of God when we meet someone, because
Mhm.
um
That's good.
they're a creation of God. And so when I see like something in someone, like, you can just see how they become part of the whole. So, I'm in my job, I'm one person with a board of directors because we're a nonprofit who are wonderful. And then we're just a ton of volunteers. And I love meeting someone, and I love getting to know them and then thinking, like, okay, what's their part? And maybe it's a really
Oh,
tiny part,
yeah.
or maybe they're going to get really involved. But I love making connections for people as well. This is getting more into kind of my job history, but I was, the women's I'll give you a little background of my
Yes, do
job,
it,
because
do
I
it, do
think
it.
this is important
I
to
love
this
it.
context. So I came out of college, worked at a couple different nonprofits, in Huntington, and then one of the biggest shifts was I was asked to apply to become the director of a women's recovery home, and I had no
Wow.
experience with addiction. I know very little experience in any sort of residential work in nonprofits, but I took the crazy leap and did it. And the house didn't even exist yet. They just had a nonprofit, and they said, "We want to hire you. We want you to find a house, make the program happen." Um, and it was such a wonderful experience getting to do that. I mean, the people I met through that
Yeah.
were just, I mean, it changed me as a person. I loved
Mhm.
that job. It was so wonderful. But my favorite part of that job was that I got to pair up the women with mentors. And
Oh,
it was such a fun, it felt like a matchmaking. Like, I was like, maybe
yeah.
I could have done matchmaking in a
Yeah.
different life, if I had thought about it. But I felt like I was actually really good at it. And then I mean, some of these women are still meeting with their mentor today. And this was years ago. But just to watch them find a person, and they're like, oh, like this could be one of my people. Like,
Mhm.
this is a person who they see me, they're coming without judgment. And I was pairing people who were like, I mean, I'm trying to think of one of it's like women who were in the like depths of addiction months before, with like lawyers, or like, these like really well-known people in the community, and like their lives would have never
Crossed.
crossed
Wow.
in any other circumstance. And here their lives were intersecting, and I, like, get chills thinking
I
about it,
literally
because
am
it
like
was like, I mean, I think it's where I first saw, "Oh, we can be facilitators of community." You know what
Mm.
I mean? Like,
Yeah.
yeah, having people gather for gatherings, that's wonderful. But it was like at a deeper level. It was like, "Oh,
Mm.
I can facilitate connection in a way that truly can be life altering for people when we do it thoughtfully." And so I kind of feel like that sparked something in me where I was like, I want to help people feel like they're a part of something, because it's magical. It is like magic to see people connect. I mean, I just like can't explain it other than that. It's just magic.
Oh
It's so cool.
gosh, that is so cool. I have so many thoughts. Oh my goodness. Where do I go? Where do I go? I was thinking when you're talking about mentors, I lead a ladies' Bible study at my church. And one of the things is it's not a, a group of young women. It's a group of older women and young women and, middle age. And you get to see different stages of their life in their faith and in their everyday life and
Mhm.
the challenges they've had to face, and it's inspirational because I can walk in feeling like, "Oh, I think I have this passage down." You know what I mean? Or this little thing to speak about or to bring forward. And then, one of the ladies, she's in her 80s, and she goes, "Well, have you ever thought of this?" And, she'd just talk about this, and she'd bring something into their and from her life, and I'm like, "I never would have seen that." And, it's because, talking about, faith mostly here, but I was talking about how, it's a living word, so everybody kind of feels like it connects with them at every stage of their life.
Mhm.
But with a mentor in general, in life, in faith, or in just general everyday life, I feel like you get to see these levels of what your life could be
Mhm.
if you never would have envisioned your life that way. And I love that community when we gather in our community, like when I met Ashley Miller, when I went in there and I'm like, I see her making a difference in
Mhm.
her community. And I'm like, I to connect with somebody who had the same feeling that I want to do in my life, like not out of it, and especially for her, it's not out of look at me or whatever it might be. And that's not what I want, but I can see her as like, I just want to facilitate it, like you
Mhm.
said. And I love this idea of mentorship. I think people need to have more mentors in
Mhm.
their life, which obviously that's just getting around the right people and
Mhm.
meeting the right people. But sorry, I totally
No,
like
yeah, that's
I
I
just
agree.
love that.
Yeah.
I love that. So how are you in your job? I don't know if we mentioned exactly what you did. Did we mention exactly what you do?
Kind of, yeah. I can share a little bit about that
Yeah,
then. Yeah.
let's jump into that
Yeah.
and let's talk about Huntington in
Great.
general, and maybe this can be something that if somebody's listening here in Wabash or
Mhm.
in a whole other town, be like, you know what, I want to start implementing more in our
Yeah,
community. Talk
for sure.
about talk about your job.
Well, so I'll give a little history of how I even got to my job and then kind of like
Oh
what I
yeah,
do.
sorry, I
No,
totally
that's okay.
interrupted
No,
you.
that's okay. Well, I was before I came, I was thinking about, the podcast and what you um kind of like what's the purpose about like and how we
Mhm.
connect. And I think I'm in an interesting stage in my life. Somebody actually told me I said I was interested in genealogy and
Mm,
she said, "You're actually at the right place." This is usually when people start thinking about it because I thought I was behind because I'm like upper 30s and I was like, "I'm so behind. I know so little." And she's like, "No, this is when people start getting
yeah,
into it." And I was like, "Okay, cool. I'm right on
yeah.
time." Um, so anyways, I had worked in the nonprofit realm, had worked at this women's recovery home. It's called Place of Grace. It is wonderful. It's grown exponentially since I've left my time there. I was there for about 4 years as the director, and during that time, I had my second child, Elsie. She's 6. She's a little
Oh.
spitfire, um, and I my mom, was going through, cancer, and
Mhm.
she it was a 2-year process, and she ended up dying during that time. And that I think losing a parent shifts something monumentally for people. It did for me,
Mm.
where I just I don't know if you've ever heard people talk about how, like, you kind of grow around your grief. I don't know if you've ever
Yeah,
heard people
I've
talk
heard it,
about
yeah.
that, but that is certainly true for me, where the grief it will always be there. That doesn't
Mm.
go away. But I kind of shifted around that. And during that time, I felt a shift happening where I could tell it was my time to leave, not because I didn't believe in the organization
Mhm.
or that the women's home. I will champion and cheer them on forever. Um, but I could feel a shift in my time there ending. And sometimes I couldn't explain to you why.
Mm.
It wasn't because I was mad or sick of it or, you know, something was going wrong in particular, but I could just tell like I was being called to something else.
Yeah, no, I get you.
And um during the time when my mom died, she taught me how to bake growing up. She taught me how to decorate cakes.
Oh.
And so I started doing that because when she died, she left that hole for my children and my nieces and nephews where she would make their birthday cakes. And I was like, well, somebody has to do this. And I kind of used it as a way to work through my grief. And so what I ended up doing was when I left my time at Place of Grace, my husband and I opened a bakery in downtown Huntington. Hard 180
Yeah,
in
yeah.
terms of jobs. You know, I couldn't have explained to you why it was time to leave Place of Grace, but the woman who has replaced me there, I will sing her praises forever. She's awesome. She has grown the organization
Wow.
exponentially. And I'll tell you why all that background is important with that job in a moment. But started a bakery, had that for 4 years. There's something about 4 years for me, I guess.
Yeah.
And it was, aside from parenting and aside from losing my mom, the hardest thing I've ever done. Way harder than I expected. It takes so much grit and determination to run your own business. And it was a very physical job. There were so many things I loved. We created a beautiful business. It really was wonderful in a lot of ways. It really was so hard in other ways. And, starting the bakery was a way to work through my grief. And by the end, it was less of a reason. And it was more like, how do we keep this thing going rather than kind of the joy it brought or
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
kind of fulfillment it brought.
Mhm.
And so my husband and I were like, listen, we decided together we needed to sell, or we at least need to be done.
Mhm.
Where this is like too much, it's not good for, I was working there full time. He was helping some. And we just knew it was time to sell. And I was like, who's gonna buy our 4-year-old bakery? Like, did we build something that people would want to buy? And I remember it was literally in the first 2 days after we decided to sell the bakery, I had a couple ideas of maybe so and so would be interested, maybe so and so. And I had this idea pop in my head. I have chills thinking about it again. And I was like, I wonder if Place of Grace would buy it because they just started this popcorn company and um it's called a social enterprise is what it is under a nonprofit, where it's basically it helps with job readiness for their women. Um and it also feeds back into the organization for them to make money. So they had just started their popcorn business. It was a gourmet popcorn business. And I called up their director of operations, who used to be one of the board members when I was there. And I was like, I have this crazy idea. What would you all think about buying the bakery? I was like, I know this is insane. And she said, We're we are literally about to sign the lease on another building today. Let me get back to you, and because I think this would be a better fit. And I was like, you're signing the lease today? What? What are the
Oh
chances?
my gosh.
And so these are the times when I'm like, there certainly is a higher power because we could not orchestrate such crazy, perfect things.
Right.
So anyways, so she comes down and she's like, give me a quick tour. And I was like, I can't believe you're even interested. I thought this was such a long shot. And she's like, we've been looking for a commercial kitchen for the popcorn company. And then we've been looking for office space for our administrative staff because they had grown already so much that it started as one house. Now there's multiple houses. They have a graduate home, they have family homes. I mean, it's just amazing. And so it worked out and they bought the bakery from us. And I cannot believe it, how perfect it works out because the first original Place of Grace home is within our downtown footprint.
Oh yeah.
And so is the bakery that we sold them. So now I get to support this organization that I helped kind of come to fruition. Now I get to cheer them on because it's my job, not just
Job.
personally, but now I get to celebrate them in my new role. And when you leave something, you're like, do I still fit in? Do I still have a part in this?
Mhm.
And so now I kind of have a clear part. It's like I get to champion them as a downtown business and a downtown nonprofit, and it's just part of my job and I get to do it. So it just really it's a wild story to even get from A to B
That's
to C
amazing.
sometimes. But yeah, that's kind of the story of how I went from nonprofit to bakery owner to now working as a director of Huntington Main Street. So if you have any questions, I can let you know, or I can keep going about Main Street too.
No, I love it. Please
Okay,
continue on. This is awesome.
Yeah.
I love it.
So while I owned our bakery, a couple of community members approached me and they were like, we want to get a Main Street organization started. We had a Main Street organization pre-COVID, and it kind of like, as with a lot of things during COVID, it really kind of fizzled out and really was non-existent. We had a Main Street designation through the state that had lapsed. And so really it was a fresh start for Main Street. And they came to me and they're like, what do you think? And or maybe I reached out to them. I like knew they were talking about it. And so we started talking about like who could be involved, who would be not just people who have like some sort of vested interest, like downtown business owner or whatever, but people who really are going to believe in this. And we got to like handpick a group, which was awesome, and just get some people on board for like, how do we help develop? How do we help support downtown? And so we started a nonprofit while I was still at the bakery and had no intention of working for the nonprofit at that point. But we started this nonprofit. We did all the really what I call like the unsexy, unfun work of
Yeah.
creating a nonprofit. It's like filing things with the state, creating bylaws, creating board like policies and
Oh,
procedures,
man.
like, fundraise. It's like those things aren't really fun.
No.
But we did all the things that like, you really have to do to create a good foundation
Mhm.
for an organization, in my opinion, as a nonprofit. And then we got to the point where we had some funds from our city and our community foundation to hire someone. And it was at the exact same time as we were selling the bakery, which is just crazy. But we knew we were selling. We didn't even know yet if they were like their board had to approve it.
Mhm.
But I was like, I was like telling my friends to apply. I'm like, you'd be perfect for this job. And they're like, I feel like I'm applying for your job because you're perfect for this job. And I'm like, yeah, but I own a bakery. And so it was like, I'm a person who's all in. Like
Yeah.
if I'm
Yeah.
all in, and I was still all in at the bakery. I don't like shirk responsibilities 'cause something else seems like fun and exciting. I was fully committed to that. And until this commitment is completed, I can't start something else. And I certainly could not do both jobs.
Yeah.
And so, but my friends kept saying like, yeah, but you should do this job. And so I listened to them and I was like, yeah, I probably should. And, that's when we decided we're kind of like, I should do this job. The bakery should sell. And so I kind of went in the wrong order and I resigned from the board and then applied for the job because you can't hire a board member. That's a very unethical thing to do. But I resigned from the board and said, I'm resigning because I'd like to apply for the role. And then that same week later that week, we found out the sale was going to go through. So I kind of did it in the wrong order, kind of hoping and having faith
Yeah.
that it was
Yeah.
just going to be the right thing. And so, and they chose me, and I'm so glad. If it hadn't worked out, I could have applied for another job, but they chose me, and I just have loved this job. I think having been a small business owner and having worked in nonprofit work is the perfect combination. If I had not worked in a nonprofit, obviously I wouldn't be a good leader of a nonprofit. And then having been a small business owner, I don't think it's like being a parent. You can't understand what it's like to be a parent until you've been one.
Mhm.
And so I needed to be a downtown business owner to understand the downtown business and what they're going through. I think I have more empathy for how much grit it takes and how much effort they're putting forth. I think to really have that empathy for them and to know how and when to ask and how much to ask for and what it looks like to build trust with them,
Mhm.
I think is just a really important thing that someone in this role needs to
Yeah.
have. So, and then Main Street, so Wabash has a Main Street
Yeah.
organization, which
Yeah.
Wabash is like such a wonderful community. I love looking to them for ideas. But Main Street, there is a national Main Street organization. There
Mhm.
are state organizations and then there are local organizations. And they all kind of provide different support. But at a local level, it is a nonprofit organization. And um, at every level, there are 4 focus areas. So they are promotion of the space. They are design, where you're actually looking at the physical layout and look of the downtown, economic vitality, which is support for those small business owners, and then organization, which is how do we bring people together to kind of make this work. And for us, that plays out in events. So, yeah, I'm always focusing on those 4 areas. And if one kind of like falls to the wayside, you really feel it. You really have to keep all those things balanced. So
Mm.
those are the things I get to do day in and day out.
Well, I'm listening to you, and I was trying not to go, yeah, the whole time you were talking. I was listening to the
Uh-huh.
listeners. Promise, I was not ignoring her or not have anything to say. I was just trying not to fill the air with it. But that is so cool. Like having something like that. I mean, especially for Wabash too. Like when I'm looking at our town, like what they do, what our nonprofits do for our community is I don't think our communities realize exactly what it takes to run something like this and to do something like this and to make such a big difference. And that's what you're doing is you're trying to make a difference in such a big way and you're almost doing it on the down low. Like you don't you know, people don't see all the hard work. Just like small business owners, people don't the general public does not see what they're doing day to day and the late nights it's taking to get it off the ground and to go. And I love that you're championing. Let's see, can I say that word?
Ch-
Championing.
championing.
Why?
Championing.
Why am I
That's a
not
tricky
saying
one.
why could I not say that? I love that you're doing that though. It really it's so cool to watch somebody light up like you when you're talking about it. Like Ashley does the same thing. Ashley Miller did the same thing, talking about what she was able to provide for the community, and it's in your face. And I always say to the listeners, like you don't get to see the face of the talker because of logistics for me, but also I wish you could because it is something that just lights up in somebody's face. What do you think is the biggest thing you have learned in this role? Not it could be work related, it can be personal, it can be both. What is the biggest thing you've learned in your role as director?
I think maybe how much I need other people.
Mm.
Which, like, I maybe knew in theory.
Mhm.
So I'm an oldest daughter, which comes with a certain
Yeah.
personality. So I have an older brother and then me, my younger sister, and younger brother.
Mhm.
And I certainly fit the bill for an oldest daughter, which is like hyper independent. I can become like a mama bear about my kids, like very protective of my kids. I have this ability to be really direct but kind and professional at the
Mhm.
same time. It's kind of like become my goal to be able to like be as clear as
Mm.
possible for people, but still in a way they can hear. Um, and so, yeah, classic oldest daughter. And that hyper independence can, I think, is like a benefit in some ways. I try to be a very reliable employee. I try to, not be like no one has to hold my hand. I'm like self-motivated. I'm going to get it done.
Mhm.
Like all those things can make a really wonderful employee. But if I want to be a facilitator of connection and if I want to lead a grassroots organization and grassroots movement, there is a sense of needing to release control and release this like desire to be in charge of everything or to think I can get it all done. And yes, I can get a lot done, and that's great. But how does that create buy-in and how does that create support and how does that support this like ecosystem that is a downtown? And
Mm.
so I think I've just learned that is something I think it'll always be something I have to work on, I think, because
Mhm.
it does not feel natural to hand over the reins to someone and say, take it, even if it maybe doesn't represent me the way I want or the down, like even things like something that can be hard for me is like, you want to create a brand, right? Like
Mhm.
and that's one of the things that me and some other organization leaders have been talking a lot about is what is our downtown's identity, and then you want to kind of put it back out to the community in a cohesive way. So like we have an awesome director of our visitor bureau, Tara. She's just started last year, and she's just spectacular. We've got some really great city employees that I work with. Other people like Ashley, who I mean, when you walk in her store, you see her branding, you see
Mhm.
her identity. She's so good at protecting that.
Mhm.
We've just got some really cool people that are doing good work. Our art director, her name is America. How cool can you get?
So
Your
cool.
name's America. She
I
really is.
actually seen some of her work.
Yeah,
I'm trying to get her on the
she's so
podcast.
oh, you should. She's awesome. And so, I have all these awesome people who are doing like we've been talking about this branding idea. And then if a store owner like, maybe wants to like use your logo, it's like, I get like, "Oh no, are they gonna?" But I realize like but this isn't my event. This isn't my thing.
Mhm,
This is our thing. And that means they're going to represent it in their way.
mhm.
Um, they're going to promote the event their way. One thing I've noticed is like if you name an event or you name something, people are almost always going to get it wrong, and that's okay,
Mhm.
is what I've learned. So we just started something called Market on Main Street. It's on our third Friday of every month. It's so fun. But if you see people's social media posts, they're calling it Third Fridays. They're calling it the market. They're calling it farmers market on Main. They're calling it, I mean,
Yeah.
anything. And at first it's like, oh, well, no, that's not the name, but it doesn't matter because
Mhm,
it can be Main Street can be my thing and it can
mhm,
be Sharon Metzger's thing or it can be downtown's thing. I don't think it can be it's going to be a little bit of both
mhm,
probably. It's going to be have my identity attached to it a little bit, but I want people to know like, yeah, you can use the Main Street, like the Market on Main Street logo because this is also your event. Like you're putting in effort to make this a good event too. And they come up with ideas for their business. And it's so fun to see that. And
mhm,
so not only is it something I'm learning, but it's something I'm learning to love. And it goes back to that, like, how my facilitator, not like the sole identity or like the
mhm,
sole
mhm,
caretaker, how am I facilitating other people taking ownership of the events we put on, taking ownership of promoting downtown. It's like all those 4 focus areas, the design, the promotion, the economic vitality, and the organization. We have committees for all of them that have
mhm.
volunteers. But even past that, like the business owners, I want them to buy into what we're doing. I
Yeah.
want to build their trust. And when we kind of hand over some ownership of this is our event together, like what do you want to do for the event? Then there's over 100 businesses in downtown Huntington. People don't realize that. And yeah, there's like lawyers'
Yeah.
offices and, hair salons, which are it's great. I love having everyone downtown. Um, but when they kind of think like, okay, what's my part? I think we just start creating something really beautiful together. And so that's I think what I've learned and I now love as a part
Mhm,
of my job. Um, it really has, there have been times when my ego gets me stuck where I
mhm,
forget, like, hey, you don't always have the right answers.
mhm.
You don't always know what's best. And let other people try things, let other people speak into this and don't like let your ego get so big that it pushes people out. I
Mhm.
think that's like an important thing to remember. So,
I love that. And I say I love that a lot, but like when I think about this element of being a leader, there is um a power to that. Like,
hmm
and it's easy to allow the human nature of things of without even realizing your ego's getting in the way or greed's getting in the way because we all have it and we it all rears its head up at the most inconvenient times
hmm
90% of the time. But I love the honesty that comes with your leadership. Is like, hey, I don't want to be, I don't want this to be an egotistical thing. I want this to actually grow the community and to involve other people. That conversation isn't talked about a lot. I mean, even to the person who's going to their job every day and is a part of a team, ego gets in the way
hmm
and everyday life gets in the way within a family, ego gets in. And just this more conversation of saying like kind of giving of oneself a little bit is it's a give and pull and give and take to actually create something that has that power.
hmm
And I love that you talked about that. So thank you for talking
Yeah,
about
of
that. I
course.
love that. I have a desire to be a good leader, a good person, a good human being in general, and to know people who are making an impact and are doing things like you, know that it's still you have to continue to pull back and be like, "Okay, what are you doing?" And the question of if I want to make a difference,
Mhm.
is this gonna hurt or help our community? What is your vision, for you? What is your vision that you see downtown Huntington or Huntington in general? Where do you want Huntington to be? What is that vision that you have in your head that you're working towards?
Yeah. It's so interesting. As a new nonprofit, it's sometimes it feels a little bit day to day, sometimes. So and also, like, I don't want us to get too big for our britches. Like, it's just me. So I always think
Right.
in terms of plans, like, what can I accomplish now as one person with an amazing, like, group of volunteers to back me and support me, and back and support downtown. And so we've often been thinking, like, when we set goals, they're like year long,
Mhm.
and they're like very attainable. But our city has this downtown master plan. And um, there are things from that. We have a really awesome, I often brag about how amazing the leaders are around me. I often talk about how, like, things can change at any time, like,
Mhm.
or, nonprofit leaders can move on and change jobs. Politicians that we're working with, city employees can move on, like, these things can always change. And so there feels like this current urgency in a good way because I already talked a little bit about some of the other leaders in our community, but we just have I'm working with exceptional people. When I talk about egos, there's no huge egos at play.
Mhm.
And I'm talking like from city and like our mayor is wonderful. He
Mhm.
really has downtown as a top priority. Our community foundation director is exceptional, just like really community minded and getting things done. Um, has wonderful people on his team. Our community or our visitor bureau staff is wonderful. We have great downtown business owners right now. Everything is really primed to make some exceptional jumps and leaps, and they're happening. Like, we have some really great projects coming up with some development of some areas that have not been developed before. And in the next few years, we'll have over $13 million invested into our downtown,
Wow.
and that none of that will come from Main Street. We do have projects that we're working on. Like right now,
Mhm.
we're doing a patronicity campaign to raise money to replace like our planters and our hanging baskets.
Mhm.
So we're trying to do things that complement these really huge,
Mhm.
outstanding projects that are happening. So I can kind of see, like, in the next few years, I mean, there will be some really great leaps and bounds where our sidewalks are safe for people to walk on. Um, and, any kind of like unlevelness will be gone because we're redoing our streetscapes, which is wonderful. Um, and we've already been having more and more people who are interested in opening businesses downtown. So I think when I try to get out of the day to day and see the big picture, I can already see that like some of these things are already going to happen, which is so wonderful. But I think the things that are still kind of like unknown, the things I'd love to see is like no inactive storefronts.
Mhm.
There's not a lot of empty buildings, but the way that downtowns, the course of history during the 70s, we started moving to the outsides of towns with suburbs, with development of chains, with malls, with housing developments. Like, there's really a push towards the outside of our communities, and downtowns are in the center of our
Mhm.
communities. They're what cities were built around. And so they were forgotten. They were not well maintained. Um, it was really cheap to buy a building, so people bought them for, whatever. And a lot of people use downtown spaces for storage. And so we're no exception to that. And so I would love to see not a single downtown storage being used. And that I would just love to see every storefront active in some way. Um, People sometimes get hung up on what kind of businesses there are, like, oh, we have too many of this, we have not enough of this, which valid.
Mhm.
I think I've kind of realized like these are privately owned properties. People are going to do whatever they want with them. How do we support every single business in the way that they need support? And how do we meet them where we're at? And how do we just wait for the rebalancing? Like right now, we have a lot of coffee shops in downtown
Mhm.
Huntington, which I love because I love
Yes.
going to them all.
Yeah.
Um, and we have two that are opening soon. And once they do, we will have five, which is a lot.
Mhm.
But I see the line around some of the bigger coffee shops, the chain coffee shops, and we can certainly do
Mhm.
better of supporting our local places so that they are surviving. There's no shortage of people drinking coffee.
Mhm.
Um, and maybe five is a lot. things rebalance. It will balance because we'll get more retail, and so there's more people coming down to drink
Right.
those places. Not every business succeeds, which is I want every business to succeed.
Yeah.
I don't want anybody to fail, but businesses do come and go. It's always changing and adjusting, which makes it feel like a very alive place. And I think past all of the like, yes, it's wonderful. We'll have new streetscapes and there's a lot of really wonderful things happening. I'm so happy about that. But at, like, the very core, I want it to be a lively place where people are drawn there. They feel like if I go downtown, I'm gonna walk into stores and they're gonna know my name. They're
Mhm.
gonna care about my kids and ask them, "How's soccer going? How's school going?" They're gonna remember their, like, favorite candy at the candy store. Like, we want to be known. It's that
Mhm.
community, it's that connection. So I want it to be a place that's just alive. It feels alive. Events are gonna draw more people, and of course, it's gonna feel really lively then, and I love that, but what about the rest of the times? Are people coming and spending time there? Do they see it as a place, like, worth investing their time, energy,
Mhm.
money? And I would say that's happening. That's
Mhm.
happening for us. I mean, when I moved to Huntington 20 years ago, I there was nothing drawing me to downtown, and now it's exceptionally lively in a way that it wasn't before. So that's happening, and I want more of that. Like
Mhm.
I kind of like crave that aliveness that people bring to a place. So
Mhm.
yeah.
I love that. Well, we are drawing to an end, but I'm going to ask you one question. And this kind of can be personal, it can be with work, and can be whatever. Whatever. Oh, goodness gracious. My words are not working today. That doesn't work well with the podcast. But what is it that keeps you going, that keeps you steady there, here, wherever it is that you want to insert there? What is it in the moments where it gets really tough, where you're not exactly sure? We've talked about grief, we've talked about a lot of things. What and I should say, I really appreciate I didn't want to interrupt you when
Oh
you're
yeah.
talking about, so
Oh yeah.
I really appreciate you sharing that and all the background and um but what keeps you going as a person when it gets really tough and what keeps you going? What
I think there's something about age. I know I'm only 38. I'm not that
No.
old, but I am getting older. But I think with age has brought more steadiness in my life in a lot of ways. And I think that's both something that I've cultivated internally, but I think it's also come from surrounding myself with people who I feel filled by and I feel there's like that mutual support where I feel both that I'm an important part of their life and they are an important part of my life. So yeah, I think I've just gained more confidence, more like sturdiness over time where things maybe don't knock me over like they would have
Mhm.
in my teens and 20s. I just feel more maybe confident in myself. And I think some of that confidence comes from knowing that support outside of my individuality is there, that there are people that are going to catch me when I do fall. So I can maybe take a little more risk or maybe jump into something because I know if it doesn't work, like those people are there to
Mhm.
love and support me. And I think there's, yeah, some security in that. I think that that helps me feel like a sturdier human in general. I remember when I turned 30, I got two I think somebody emailed me and somebody texted me and said, like, "Happy birthday." And there were women who were in their I don't wanna say their age because I might have been wrong, but they were older, I think maybe in their 40s or 50s. And they said, "Happy birthday. My 30s were my favorite time of life. I just felt so much more confident and light and just like I could like take on the world." And it made me so excited for my 30s. And you know what? They were not wrong. They were not wrong. My 30s have been wonderful. And I just for them to kind of like project that to me of like, you're entering into something like really cool when some people are afraid to age, I think just set me up to be like, okay, I'm, like, gonna jump in and be excited for this. And I think, having a mom who died at 56, I really have had the perspective of, like, what am I waiting for? What would I wait for? Because who knows? Who knows if I get a long life or not? This is a sad thing to say, but life expectancy on my mom's side, it's not great. Most of my grandparents died young. And so and my mom died young. Life expectancy might be short for me. And so like, why would I wait? Why would I wait to do what I can to like make this world better? So I think there's also a level of like, you know, that keeps me like wanting to stay the course. It's like, yeah, there might not be tomorrow. And like that's the thing you say, but I'm like, well, for me, like maybe especially having like, these things run in my family, let's take on today. Who knows?
Man, I love that. I gotta come up with a new saying because I love that. I think having this idea of speaking life into people, those people that you surround yourself with, that community, those groups of women that text you and be like, hey, enjoy this time. You're
Mm-hmm.
gonna love it. They're speaking life. But I think what you might not fully realize yet, right at this moment, is you're speaking life into a lot of people in your community. And I know that that's your goal in life, is to make a difference, but know that you are, and that you are doing such an amazing job in the little amount of time that I have known you, and this time that we've got to sit together, and just the testimonies of people that I've got to speak to in Huntington about you, who has referenced you or whatever it might be. I can see what kind of speaking life looks like. And I think keep going, and I think you're gonna make such a big difference, and I'm so thankful that you came here, and hopefully somebody got something out of this. I feel like you're here for a reason. Like everything leads us to the right place, and thank you for everything that you shared and for everything that you're doing for your community.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. This was wonderful.
Lovely. I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode, because I sincerely did. I am incredibly inspired every single time someone walks into my studio and sits down. I am able to look in their eyes and I am welcomed into their story, and that is priceless. It is a great honor and also a great responsibility to think that when they said yes to come onto my podcast, that meant that they trusted me. They trusted me enough to allow me to help tell their story, and to me, that means the world. So thank you to my guest. If you'd like to connect with my guest, if they left any or mentioned any of social media or websites, it will be in the description box below, as well as on my Facebook and Instagram if you want to see what they look like. I have a portrait and a small little write-up along with anything they mentioned within this podcast. So I hope today that you have been inspired to look at your own life and to see that just living your life is important. But I want to inspire you as well to actually document your life. You have an importance in this world, and I want you to use your voice. So it doesn't have to look like 6 pages in a journal or being on a podcast. It can look like a line a day. If you'd like to connect with me, make sure you head over to hereinmytime.com. That is where I have a bi-weekly blog, as well as some of my portfolio work with photography, and where you can also contact me through email at hereinmytime@gmail.com. As well as follow me on Facebook and Instagram. This is at Here in My Time as well, here.inmytime for Instagram, and I have weekly content. Thank you so much for your support. It means the world. And until next week, bye-bye.